bend the knee and join me. Together, we will leave the world a better place than we found it.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Nerdy Multiverse and yet another breakdown. Today we will be breaking down and giving our initial thoughts on the second episode of the second season of House of the Dragon, the prequel series to Game of Thrones that takes place during a time known as the Dance of the Dragons from the books. This breakdown and the following ones as well will contain spoilery things from the source material. This is your spoiler warning. You have been warned. The second episode of this season being titled Rhaenyra the Cruel. Now, before we get started with the episode and the breakdown, there are always two sides to a story, and there are two sides to this war. Team Green and Team Black. If you wish to choose your side and rep them until the very end, feel free to check out our merch made just for you to pick your side in this war. The link is in the description below. Anyways though, the episode begins practically right after the previous one in the horrific act that is known as blood and cheese. As the royal servants carry bloodied sheets and the guards gather the people of the Red Keep, locking it down as well as the city gates to King's Landing, so that nobody can leave and so that they can catch who is responsible for the murder of Jaehaerys. Aegon is absolutely furious and vows to kill them all, and wishes to declare war, as he destroys his father Viserys' display of Valyria in anger. Now, obviously the goal was to take out Aemond, however they went after the child instead, and we see Aemond discover the open door to Maegor's tunnels, showing just how much he escaped an attempt on his own life. Tons of emotions are about, and I personally think that this episode is one of the best acted ones so far, as everyone is showing their way of grieving, whether it's immense anger or sadness. As Alicent speaks with her father Otto, who says that there may be some good to come from this. This just shows how Otto tries to take opportunities from any situation given. The council meets and Aegon is still very emotional, as he should be, as his son, legacy, and heir has been killed. He wants revenge and he wants Rhaenyra to pay, as he believes that she is responsible. He then goes after Ser Criston Cole, wondering where he was when his child and the heir to the Iron Throne was murdered in their own walls. Of course, he was with Alicent that night instead of standing on post, leaving Haelana and the children unprotected. Lord Larys Strong then walks in mid-meeting and informs Aegon that a member of the Gold Cloaks known for his brutality has been caught, with the child's head in his sack, just as he was in the books. And this description of him being known for his brutality is also how they described him in the books. Otto suggests that a funeral should be held and they should ride Jaehaerys through the streets of King's Landing, with Alicent and Haelana on a carriage behind, to show the grief that they suffer from and display the quote-unquote work of Rhaenyra. As Alicent enters Haelena's room to inform her of the funeral, we can see that the adrenaline has worn off on Haelana, as she holds onto Jaehaerys' clothes in sadness and grief. When they ride through King's Landing to head to the dragon pits for Jaehaerys' funeral, the citizens throw leaves down and towards the carriage out of respect. They then gather around their carriage in a sign of support, but it ends up freaking Haelana out and she starts to have an anxiety attack. Now, I believe these leaves falling are a symbolization of how the Greens are dividing, and it shows how they're losing their advantage in the war. While this goes on, in the dungeons of the Red Keep, Larys Strong is seconds away from torturing Blood to gather any information he may have, but he ends up just blurting out that he was hired by Daemon Targaryen. Blood revealing this information also happened in the books, although he went 13 days before dying. He is to be spared by Larys here, but not by the king. He is to be spared by Larys here, but not by the king, as Aegon walks into the cell and gets one good look at his child's killer and then exacts his revenge and justice. Now at Dragonstone, as Rhaenyra and her council meet, where she is informed of what has happened and that she is being accused of it. Now obviously, she dismisses it, and that is because she is not responsible. Nor did she call for this and would never call for this. She lost her own son, so why would she take someone else's in an act of retaliation? Sir Alfred Broom suggests that maybe she is responsible and she did it in grief. Rhaenyra corrects him and Rhaenys tells him to mind himself. Now, Alfred Broom plays a pretty big role towards the end in the book, and let's just say he is not very trustworthy. It even shows a bit here with him questioning Rhaenyra. Rhaenys looks over at Daemon and it's clear that she suspects that he is likely responsible, and she is not the only one, as Rhaenyra then looks at him, leaving the two to have a meeting alone in her quarters that ends up leading to an argument. She questions what his orders were if those that he hired were unable to get to Aemond. He denies it having anything to do with a child, but then again, we do not know what his true orders were ourselves, in the series as well as the book. But it is likely that he called for blood to be spilled no matter what. Daemon says that his brother Viserys was afraid of him and how he would have lived under his shadow if he didn't cast Daemon out. Viserys was one that tried to rule under peace, just as King Jaehaerys Targaryen did before him. If Daemon were to be king instead, he would have likely ruled with an iron fist. Rhaenyra says that Viserys did not trust him, just as she cannot trust him now. He has gone behind her back too many times now and has now had some horrific things done in her name. Their argument ends with Daemon leaving and riding out, fully geared up on his dragon, Caraxes, as they likely head to Harrenhal for him to take and claim it for Rhaenyra next episode. Now of course, Harrenhal is the home to House Strong. Baela is called to meet with Rhaenyra after and has her fly over King's Landing with her dragon Moondancer, cautiously of course to observe their next moves just in case. Moondancer is a very small dragon and was often described as the size of a warhorse in the book, so it's the perfect match to be sent out as a scout. And before she heads out, she practices using her crossbow as Jaehaerys meets with her on the cliffside where they speak to one another about their fathers, recalling memories between the Strong boys, Laenor Velaryon, as well as their real father, Harwin Strong, who Jace refers to as Breakbones, which was also his nickname in the book. Baela says that she does not know how to feel about her father, Daemon, and sometimes she thinks that she hates him. Now, as she practices using her crossbow, you can see Jace take a look at the target as it is being fired upon with the arrows. This is a huge foreshadowing in my opinion, and if you know, you know. We head back to King's Landing and the Red Keep as Haelana and Aegon come face to face on the stairs but do not say a single word to each other, as Aegon just passes by, not providing any sort of comfort or support for his wife and, well, sister. Alicent cares for herself now with no servants in sight, as she continues to isolate herself from the rest of the world and what's going on. This will likely be a continuing spiral going on with the series. All of this happens as Criston Cole stands outside her room after refusing to join her. And it seems in a matter of anger and likely ego, Criston Cole goes to meet with Sir Eric with an A, to question where he was when the child was murdered. He was on watch himself as he was guarding the king. So once again, Criston gets checked and humbled in a way, as he is then questioned to where he was again. This sends him on a spiral about the white cloaks of the King's Guard and how they are a sign of their purity, and how Eric has disgraced that and their line. which is very ironic and very hypocritical as he was the one not on watch himself. And he is not so pure himself either. He ends up ordering Eric to head to Dragonstone to disguise himself as his twin brother, to assassinate and strike down Rhaenyra in her own halls just as she ordered for Aemond to be. Inside one of the brothels in King's Landing, we see Aemond being comforted by a woman that we have also seen in Season 1. He opens up to her and admits that he regrets killing Luke, and then begins speaking about Daemon's attempted assassination on him, claiming that his uncle is afraid of him, which if you read the book, you know that not to be true in the slightest. Now, inside of this brothel is a woman with the Targaryen white blonde hair color. This could mean that this woman is a bastard. We know from the books and the original series that many bastards reside in King's Landing, no matter who the royal family is. The dragon seeds, as they are called, also play a huge role in the dance as well. But this woman could also have this hair color for many other reasons. And this brings us into the next scene as we catch up with Hugh Hammer, who, as I explained in the previous breakdown, is a bastard himself. In the book, Hugh Hammer plays a big role in the war and fights on both sides, and even ends up becoming a dragon rider himself. The king has promised him gold, but it is yet to be seen, and the blockade caused by this war has increased the prices of food as his wife looks concerned and his daughter lays sick in bed. I believe that this is hinting at his soon-to-be change to fight for Team Black, at least for some time. I may end up doing a full history and lore video on Hugh Hammer, as he has now been introduced into the series. So let me know if you would like to see that, and I will start working on it right away. We then cut to Alan of Hull reuniting with his brother Adam of Hull. The two of them are bastards themselves as well. And in the book, Rhaenyra does end up legitimizing them, and they go on to have big roles in the upcoming war. Corlys and Rhaenys speak with one another about Daemon and whether or not he will allow Rhaenyra to lead, and Corlys worries that he may end up challenging her rule over the Iron Throne. Now back at Dragonstone, as Rhaenyra looks through the books going through her ancestry, one of the pages that we see her looking at displays that of Aegon the Conqueror and his two sister brides, Rhaenys Targaryen and Visenya Targaryen. Of course, the Rhaenys during this time was named after this Rhaenys, and Visenya was also the first rider of Vhagar's. Rhaenyra herself looks up to Visenya, as she has even named her daughter after her. Rhaenyra then meets with Mysaria to discuss what went on with Daemon and the whole blood and cheese situation. Rhaenyra then meets with Mysaria to discuss what went on with Daemon and the whole blood and cheese situation. Obviously, all Mysaria did was provide Daemon with two names that she knew were not loyal to the Greens. Rhaenyra and Mysaria have a lot in common, as they are both women who have been overlooked and practically rejected by society, although they are much more powerful and intelligent than they are credited for, as Mysaria has always been one to sit under the royals and men, while Rhaenyra was denied her throne for a man. We know very little to almost nothing of Mysaria's history and backstory, other than what she had with Daemon in the past, but Rhaenyra ends up asking her where she got the scar on her neck. This is likely from the collars that slaves would have to wear in Essos, which we saw displayed in the original series. She swears that she has no plans to betray Rhaenyra, as she has no loyalties to the Hightowers, especially after the Hand, being Otto Hightower, had her home burnt to the ground, which we saw at the end of Season 1 of course. Rhaenyra ends up keeping Daemon's word and sets her free, but as she walks down to her boat, she spots Ser Eric with an A making his way up to Dragonstone. She obviously knows that something is up, as she was just in the same room as Ser Eric with an E. We then cut to Adam of Hull searching the sand on the beach, as the dragon that we can assume is Sea Smoke flies overhead, as he stares up into the sky watching him fly by. Of course, Sea Smoke was the dragon to Laenor Velaryon, and it's really unknown as to where he is right now, but this scene itself is a huge foreshadowing as well, as Adam does grow a lot closer with sea smoke, if you know what I mean. Now back at King's Landing once more, we see that Aegon has ordered all of the rat catchers to be killed and hung on display in front of the gates. It is revealed that Cheese was caught and killed himself though. In the books, Blood was the only one that was knowingly caught, as Cheese's fate went unknown. There were theories that Blood killed him in the sewers, but it also does make sense for this to be his fate though, as hundreds of rat catchers are there and very little was known of Cheese other than of his occupation as a rat catcher. This action causes even more division between Team Green, as Otto is absolutely furious with Aegon's actions, as the people of King's Landing are now grieving outside of their gates while cursing Aegon's name. Aegon says that his father made him king, and Otto scoffs and laughs at this, as this is not true. They just manipulated Viserys' word to usurp and take the throne from Rhaenyra. Before Otto leaves the room though, Aegon orders him to remove his pin and give it to Ser Criston Cole, Otto now being removed as the hand to the king and Criston gaining the title himself. In the book, Criston also stands as Aegon's hand after this. We then see Sir Eric with an A infiltrate and easily make his way through Dragonstone and towards Rhaenyra's quarters, just as described in the book. Once Eric enters the room and draws his blade, he is interrupted by his brother Eric. One fights to defend his queen and the other one fights to take out the queen. They cause so much confusion with who is winning the battle and which one is which, not just with the viewers, but with Rhaenyra and the guard as well. The two even end up sustaining basically the same exact injuries. Sir Eric with an E strikes the final blow on his brother, but then takes his own life afterwards. Now in the book, the two are described to have practically killed each other. Sir Eric with an A immediately dying of his wounds, and Sir Eric with an E dying 4 days after, while cursing his brother's name. This conflict is really picking up and the casualties are rising. First Luke, then Jaehaerys, two literal children, and now the Cargill twins. And unfortunately, it is not going to slow down either. We then cut to see Alicent and her father meet with one another after he was stripped of his role as the Hand. They discuss their plans going forward and end up name-dropping Daemon Targaryen. Daemon has not been shown in the series a single time, but it is explained that he resides in Old Town. In the book, he was sent there to be a cupbearer for Lord Ormond Hightower. In the book, Daemon is another child of Alicent and Viserys's, even being regarded as the most popular son of theirs. He would don the nickname of Daemon the Daring. He also rides the dragon known as Tessarion. After their meeting, Alicent walks in on Aegon crying, but instead of walking up to him and comforting him, she just leaves the room, just to enter her own and get with Criston Cole once again, which is where the episode ends off. Overall, an absolutely incredible episode in my opinion. Some great action sequences, but more importantly, some of the best performances this show has offered so far, with such emotional scenes. The consequences of this war are really starting to be displayed and everyone is becoming so divided. Personally, I loved this episode and I believe I would give it a 9 out of 10, or even a 10 out of 10. And I cannot wait for next week's episode. But yeah, that about does it for this episode, from me at least, but of course I would like to hear your thoughts on the episode as well, so leave them down below. Thank you all for watching. If you enjoyed our breakdown and review on this episode, don't forget to give it a like, and with that being said, we will see you all the next time that we go through and explore the nerdy multiverse.